Hey everybody, Colin here, and today we're going to make another Svelte game, this time using the latest version, Svelte 5, because it's been a while since the last video, and we're going to be making a version of Mastermind, which is a game where there's a set of four items, normally colored pegs, chosen by, in this case, the computer, and you as a player need to guess the colored pegs in the right order, and you're only told after each guess how many are in the correct position and how many ones you got the right color but in the wrong position, and you have a finite number of guesses. Basically, it's something like Wordle but a little bit different and older, and we're going to make a version of it with emojis. And so to start things off, we are going to use npm to create a new vite project. And I'm just going to create it in this folder. And we're going to choose Svelte and TypeScript. And that should have, oh, and it created a Mastermind folder inside my Mastermind file folder, whatever. That's fine. We will, and actually before we get started, the other thing I want to do is I'm going to use Tailwind. So I'm going to install Tailwind and Tailwind vite. And we are going to then, once that kind of goes in, all right, great. Actually, that installed all of our, okay, no, never mind. I did that in the wrong folder. That's all right. We'll do it in here. And we will get rid of this folder because that's going to be confusing if we don't. And actually, we'll get rid of both of these. Okay. All right, that looks better. Okay, so now we can go into, let me get rid of the terminal, and we will just import Tailwind from this, and then we will just add the Tailwind CSS here. That should set things up, and then we're going to just kind of get rid of some of the stuff that was in here. There was a counter that came with this, and we'll just make this a little bigger. And then there's a bunch of stuff in here we can get rid of. We're just going to clear this all out, basically. We don't need any of this. We can keep main around for now. And we will go to index and we change this to Emojimind, because that's what we'll call this. I guess we don't need this either. And I think that is all that we need to we'll just need to go into app, right? We need to clear this out, and we're going to add import Tailwind CSS, and that should be enough. So let's get the bring the terminal back up, and then I'll just run the dev server, which should. Okay, so I've got that over here. And right now it's just blank because I pulled everything out of the app. So let's just go back here. We'll get rid of that. And we'll put something in here. Okay, so hello is good. And there's not much more to it than that at this point. So we're going to create a few game files to get us started. I'm going to just use this lib directory that was created with the template here. And we're going to create a couple files to get started with The first one being a game.svelte.ts file. Now, svelte.ts files are special. They're not Svelte components, but they are Svelte aware in the sense that you can use some of the new Svelte 5 runes in them and the reactivity that comes from those. So basically, it's a signal to the Svelte compiler that this file needs to be kind of Svelte compiled, essentially, rather than other regular TS files, which typically are just left as is. And so this will be the game state that we manage in here in a class. But I'll create another couple of files as well. We're going to create a game board, and this will just be a regular Svelte component. And we're going to do kind of an emoji picker, I guess you could say. And then we're going to do a we'll call it a guest. We'll just call it a row for now, and that'll be each time you guess some colors or some emojis in this case, that row will represent that guess essentially. And so we'll just, now that we have that board there, I'll just import it into app. So import board from, and then we're going to just do lib and board. Okay, and then instead of hello, we will do board. Okay, and on main, I'm just going to add a little bit of a max width for Excel and MX Auto, and just some padding so that we can get, so we're not crammed up against the edges over there. I'm also going to go back into index and just set some, so I just want BG white, but for dark mode, I'll do BG gray 900, and then we need to do text gray, maybe 900 for the text, and then for dark mode, we'll do text white, and it didn't like. Okay, so that'll make it a little bit less glaring over there with the rest of my dark mode. So that's just system. If you're not familiar with Tailwind, you can set it up so that you can have a class on the HTML and you can toggle it manually. But we're just going to do based on system setting right now. And since my system set to dark mode, that's what we'll be using. But let's not worry about that too much. So we've got app. We can basically ignore app at this point now. Everything else will be going on in board. And some of these other components, but we're going to create this game.svelte.ts file first, and this is going to have some of our state, like I mentioned. So first we're going to create a couple of types, a guess, which is just a string array. So this is just basically a list of emojis that you're guessing. And then there's a type of feedback, which is essentially what you get when you guess, and it'll tell you how many exact guesses you got right, and then color only. If I can spell properly, then that'll be another number, and that'll tell you how many are only the color correct. And then we're going to have a couple of functions here. One to generate the code, and then another one to score the guess and creating the feedback. And those will be generic functions that we'll pass some parameters to that we'll figure out in a second what we want there. But first, we're going to create a class that we're going to call Emojimind, and this will be our state class. Now, in these Svelte files, classes are given a bit of special treatment. If you have public properties on a class in a svelte.ts file, then and they're reactive, like if they're runes, if they're state runes or derived runes, then the Svelte compiler will automatically kind of make getters and setters for them, which is how you can kind of pass these things across module boundaries. But the nice thing is that if you just kind of do that, like follow this pattern, you really don't need to worry about how that works too much. So we're going to have a few things here for the state. So we're going to do attempts. So these are your guesses essentially, and you're going to have each one will have a guess, which is a guess, and a feedback, which is feedback, and then we're going to have an array of these. And so that's going to be state, and it's going to start off with an empty array. And then we're going to have the code, which is itself a guess, which is essentially just a set of emojis. And this is going to also be stateful. And that's going to start off with an empty array. We will set that, though, in a new game function. And then we're going to have some things here we're just going to set for, these could be constants, but we're going to make them state variables and make them things that you can configure in your game if you wanted to. But we'll just set it to 10 for now. This is the maximum number of guesses you can make. And then we're going to have a 1, which will also be stateful. All of these properties are going to basically be state runes, and the state runes just allow for Svelte to track those as reactive values. Under the hood, there are signals, and so we're going to do allow duplicates, and that'll also be another Boolean. And then the last one, which is also important, is the palette of available emojis to choose from. And I have that. I'm just going to copy those in here because typing out emojis is not fun. So we're going to do kind of just fruit emojis with this. And so that is all we need for these kind of public values. We're going to do a constructor, of course, and that's going to just call a new game method, which we don't have yet, but we will create now. And the new game method will then do this dot attempts and set that to an empty array. So kind of resetting that essentially. This dot one will be false. This dot lost will be false. And we'll have this dot code will equal we'll call generate code essentially. And what we're going to do before we generate code, though, is I'm going to just set it initially to a static set of 4, and that's what we're going to have. It's going to have them be 4, just for testing purposes, because otherwise I don't even know what the code is, and it'll help us. This will help us make sure that everything is working correctly. And let's see here. After that, we're going to have the only other method we need on this is going to be submit, which will take in a guess, which will be a guess, and that will basically say if we if the game is won or the game is lost. So basically just, no, let's do, it's actually, there we go, lost. Then we're going to just return. So we don't want it to, I guess we could also, so this is I guess is an array of strings. So we can also make sure that the guess, if the guess includes undefined, it's not going to like that. We'll say undefined as any. So basically, if there's any items in the guest that are, yeah, not strings, they're not set yet, then we will also exit early. We'll get the feedback from score, which we, and we're going to pass in score. We're going to pass it in the guess and the code. And so we'll need to implement that. And then once we have that, then we're going to do this dot attempts, and then we're going to push in. And that's the nice thing about these Svelte 5 arrays when they're, because they are kind of proxied more than they used to be. You don't have to do that kind of weird thing where you have to have an assignment so that the compiler can recognize that you're trying to change it. The push value, for example, on this array will do the right thing. It'll know that I'm adding a new value. I don't have to kind of create a new array and assign it to attempts. I can just create a new guess. And but what I will do is just create a new array for that, and then take in the feedback and push those in. Now, it's not liking feedback because the score isn't implemented, so this is not returning anything, so it's not liking that. And so before we go too much further, let's go and implement score. And instead of me typing it all out, I am going to paste in score because it's not really germane to our the actual building of a Svelte specific app. So we're going to have guess, which will be the guess, and the code, which will also be a guess. And so using this, it'll kind of check for exact matches, and then it'll give a count to the frequencies, and then it'll try and get the number of ones that are color only. And then for generating code, even though we're not using it right now, I'll also just drop in something here, and we're going to need to pass in for this the palette, which is just a string array, and then allow duplicates, which is a Boolean, and it's duplicates plural. And so if it allows duplicates, then it's just going to grab 4 random values without caring what they are. And if it is not allowing duplicates, which is the default, then it's basically going to create this pick function, which will remove the chosen item out of the array, and then just pick 4 items, kind of removing the one that it picks each time, so that it's not available to pick again. And we will use that in a second down here when we, in the new game, we'll put it here instead of this once we're happy that the rest of the functionality works. And so now this, now that this is returning feedback, we can actually, we could actually go so far as to say that this returns feedback. Then we're happy with that. And then the rest of this is just a matter of if the feedback exact equals 4, then we win. And then we want to return. And then otherwise, we will check if this attempts.length is greater than or equal to this.max attempts. And if that's the case, then this lost equals true. Okay, and so that's basically our state management. There's really not much more to it than that. And so let's jump over to the board where the bulk of our UI logic will live. Okay, so we will create our script tag here, and we're gonna have a pull in the import Emojimind. Yeah, and then we're going to do const game equals new Emojimind. So now we have kind of an instance of our game logic here in the component. And there's a couple other things that we're going to want to track as we are building out this UI. So in addition to the game state, we're going to have some UI state here, which we're going to be selecting a guess. So we're going to have kind of the current guess, which will be an array, but it's going to be an array of strings or nulls, because we're going to represent the unselected items as null. And then we're going to start that off with 4 nulls like that. And there are probably better ways and ways that we could have that be more dynamic if later we want to have the number of guesses per row configurable, but it's easier to kind of understand when we just show it with the 4 hard-coded there. And then the slot that we're currently editing is going to be state. It's going to just be a number, and we're going to be it's the index of the current array that we're currently kind of editing. And then we're going to need to have a few functions that we'll define, but we'll get to that when we get to that. So we're going to do a header here, and then inside here we'll just do the H1, and we'll do Emojimind, and then we're going to have another div where we will have a button inside here, and this button is going to just be new game. And then we're going to have a layer. Well, we're going to have an input, a checkbox, and checkbox, and then we're going to just have this bind its checked property. So this is a feature of Svelte as well. And I can bind this to a value, and I can bind it to a game.allow duplicates. So this will be the checkbox that lets us basically toggle that on and off. So we'll put that in there. And cool, that looks fine. And what do we else? Okay, that'll be for the header. We'll format this, and we'll actually that button will need to do something, obviously, when we click it. We'll write that function in a second. I'm just going to get the rest of the bones in place for what we want to have. So outside this little header thing, then we'll have a section that we are going to have for the guesses. So this is where that those rows will go in. And so we'll do a little H2 where we can say, guess the code below. And then so you can see, starting to see over here, some of this stuff show up. But it's all unformatted because we're using Tailwind and I haven't added any Tailwind classes to format everything yet, but that's fine. We'll just keep going and try and get some more of this stuff in. So row is a fairly simple and straightforward. So we're going to do import. We'll leave that for a second. We're going to do type props, and this is how we typically will define how we're bringing values in from outside the component as properties to the component. So in this case, I'm going to do guess, and that's going to be a guess, and that's going to that'll pull it in automatically, and then feedback is going to be feedback, and that should update that. And then I will do index, which is going to be a number. Great. And now we have that defined. This is how we actually specify, and I'll just put this props here. And we define this dollar, well, we don't define it, but dollar props is another rune that Svelte provides. And this is what we need to destructure in order to kind of get the values. And then adding that type kind of gives us that, well, the type safety. If you're not using TypeScript, then you don't need to type it. It'll still work the same way. You still have the dollar props. You just don't need to have the type. And so below that, we're going to have a div. And in that div, we're going to have some more divs because that's just how this works. So we're going to do dollar, and then we're going to have that index, but we're going to do +1 since most people think in 1-based numbering systems. And then we're going to do the each of the guesses. So you're coming in with a guess. And then so now we're going to do the each guess as, we'll say G. And we'll do, I don't know why it does that, but okay, div, and then I'm going to just display the guess for now. And then another div here, and this is just going to have the, so we're passing in the feedback, and so we will have the, for each of the exact and color only number, we're going to generate a little dot, well, normally be a peg, and we'll just do another little dot emoji. And so this is another feature of these each loops in Svelte. Here you saw we were kind of looping through an existing array. So this is coming in as a guess, which is an array of strings. But we can also do, and we're using each value here as G, and that's how we're referencing it in the loop. But we can also run an array without accessing the value if we want. And we don't actually need to have an array. It just needs to be array-like in the sense that it just has a length property. So we can do a length of exact, which is the number of exact matches. And then we don't care about the actual, the actual value in that because there's no value. And then we just need something that repeats that many times. So we'll just do a span. And then I'm going to copy in an emoji, that little black peg that we can use, and then we just there. And then I'll just copy and paste that, and then we'll do color only, and I'll just grab a white emoji that we can use instead. There. So again, no real formatting at this point. We'll go back and grab some of that later. But while we're in creating these files, let me grab this one, which is the emoji selector. And again, like we did before, we're going to define the prop types. It doesn't have to be called props, but I mean, kind of makes sense to call it that. So we're going to send in the palette, and we're going to send in a function. And so this is how event handlers work in the new version of Svelte. There's no more kind of create event dispatcher and then we're calling it a dispatch function. You're just passing in the event handlers as functions, essentially. So you just define them as a prop. And I mean, you can make them optional depending on kind of what kind of functionality you want. So in this case, we're going to have a function that is going to take an emoji string, and it's going to basically be a void function, so it's not going to return anything. And that is going to be the type of our props. And then we're going to just do the same thing we did before, where we just kind of call $props. Oops. And then we can bring in the palette and the on pick and then use those down here. So we're going to do just that with a div and another each loop through the palette, and the palette as emoji. So these are all the possible emojis that you can choose from. And then let's kill the each, and then we're going to just do a button with that emoji in it. And then, but when we have on click, we want to then call the on pick with that emoji. So that just sends that back up. So whenever the button is clicked, that emoji gets picked. Okay. And so we'll come back later and do some formatting here. Once we have everything kind of laid out how we want it to lay out. So we're back at the board, and we have this section here. And so now we have, let me wrap this in a div. And then we can have a each, and then we're going to do game.attempts as attempt. Actually, what we can do, and this is another feature, so instead of passing it as just a variable, you can actually destructure the variable. So attempts have guess and FB in them, feedback. And then we can also get the index from an each loop as well. And so what this lets us do is now we have guess and feedback and index inside the loop that we can reference. And it just so happens that that is the things we need for passing in to this row. And the other thing about Svelte is if you have a property and a variable with the same name, you don't have to say guess equals guess. You can just do kind of this syntax with the curly braces around the value, and it'll pass in that value to that prop with the same name. It's just a little bit of a syntactic sugar. And so that will give us those rows. Now there's no guesses, so we're not seeing anything off on the side here because we don't have any way of making a guess yet. So we need to get to that. And I'm going to just, oops, that was me pasting when I meant to hide the sidebar since we're going to be in board for a little bit yet. And so let's see, we've got the guesses. We're going to need another section now, if we can spell section properly, where we are this is where the current stuff is going to be. And then we're going to have another section down below where we're going to display, whatever happened to my closing div? Good question. Let's get that back. And then we're going to have another area down here where we're going to do an if, and this is another template syntax if you're not familiar. So if we're going to do game.1, then we want to display a message saying that we won. And then you can do else if, and we do game.lost. And then we can do a div here. And then we can close the if. But what we'll also do here is if we haven't won or lost, that means we're still playing. We can just do a regular else. And then here we're going to do this is where we're going to do the emojis, which I'll import from the other file. And here it wants the palette, which will be game.palette. And it also wants the onPick. And so what we'll do is we'll create a function called onPick, and then that'll pass that through. So we'll do just that right now. So onPick, it doesn't need any. It does need the. It takes the emoji. And that's just a string. And that should satisfy that now. So that function is being passed in there. Right now it's not doing anything. And that's fine. We'll implement that in a second. And I guess if we're going to start populating some of these handlers, then I should probably put this on click for the new game and create a function new game, which we will call game.newGame, and then we'll do current, and we'll set that to another one of these fun guys, and we'll set slot equal to 0, and that will kind of reset for a new game. All right. I see that I've lost my stuff over here. So I probably have an error somewhere. Or not. Okay. It's the hot module reload issue. Okay. So the last section here that we need to flesh out is going to be the current choice. So this is basically where you can see the guess that you're going to make. And the way this will work is we'll have a div, and then we're going to have a button, another button, to submit that. And this is going to be another place where we do a function that we haven't written yet. And this submit button, well, let's put a placeholder in for this. Submit. And one of the things we will definitely want to do here is reset, not the game, but certainly your current guess. And so what we'll be doing is, and this is where we need to start defining another variable. And so these runes are state runes, which are just kind of reactive variables. But sometimes you want a kind of to derive another value based off of one of these values that gets kind of computed whenever these state values change. And that's what we're going to do here. We're going to create a ready variable, but instead of state, it's going to be derived. And what we can do from that is we can take current and we can say current.every, and then x, and x is not equal to null, right? So it's ready. So we're basically saying that the current guess is ready when all the values are not null. So when we have a value, we've replaced null with emojis, then the current guess is ready. And so whenever that becomes true, this value will be true because this returns a Boolean. And so that every time current changes, every time we set a new value into current, this value will get recalculated. And then wherever that gets read will get recalculated. Everything will be reactive based on that. And so here we can check if we're not ready, then we don't want to submit. So we'll return from that, and we'll kind of prevent people from hitting the button. But and then we're going to do current, and it's not going to it doesn't like current because current, it wants an array of strings, and this could possibly be null, but we've already determined with the ready that it won't be. So I'm going to cheat a little bit and just tell it that it's okay. It's okay, man. Okay, so we have submit, and that looks good. New game looks good. We still need to figure out what we're going to do with on pick, but we need to figure out what's happening with this section here first. It keeps collapsing whenever I save it. And so in here, we're going to be looping through the current value, right? It's an array of strings. And so we have a value, and we're also going to do the index here. Okay, and then we're going to have buttons because we want to be able to click, and we'll talk about why in a second, but it'll be to select if we want to go back and edit. So we want the value to be in here, but this might be null. This could be string or null. So if it is null, then we're going to just do another emoji special with this little white square. Okay, so now you can see, so not only do we have that emoji picker here, and we have the submit button, but everything's unstyled. So this is still a button, but it just doesn't look like a button. And these are the 4 current guesses, but because they're all null, they're all these little white squares. Okay, so now we've got more or less everything kind of in place HTML-wise, and now we just need to wire up the rest of the functionality. And so there isn't a lot we need to do here. We need to do on click. This is the buttons. We need to do something. And so what we're going to do is we're just going to say slot equals index. So if you click it, it just kind of sets the slot to this particular button. And so slot is going to be tied into what happens when you do on pick. And so we can kind of figure that out now. And we'll go, and what happens is the current slot gets set to emoji. So when you pick an emoji, whatever the current slot is, it sets it to that. But then after it sets it to that, it tries to find out where the next one that it'll try and go to. And so the way it does that is just looking for the next index where it's null. So it basically says, where am I going here? So find the index where the value is null. And so if that's the case, then if it can't find one, so it should be -1 if that's the case, then just keep it at slot. Otherwise, set it to the next one that it found, which by default will be kind of the next one forward as it goes through. And actually, we should be able to see that now. If I click on banana, we should see banana show up here, grape, cherry, blueberry, and submit. And yeah, that works. So all the bits are there. It just looks pretty rough. So this was our guess: banana, cherry, or banana, grapes, cherry, blueberry. and the result was three in the right, or three the right shape, but in the wrong position. And we know because we hard coded it that it's actually apple, banana. So if we try that, apple, banana, grape, cherry, and submit, then we get the all four. But because we didn't actually put a message down here, we don't actually get a message. So we probably should do that. So you crack the code, and then we can do something like out of tries, and then secret was, I'm just going to put this in a span, and then game.code.join, and then we'll space them out a little bit. Okay, now that saving that's going to reset the internal state. But if we try that again, you crack the code, and you see it gets rid of the emoji, so we can't pick that anymore. So there's a few things. So that's basically it. The game hopefully works. So we can try to click a new game, and it gives us a new game, but now it looks pretty raw. So let's go and quickly add some nice things to it with Tailwind. 3XL and font bold. Okay, that's probably all we need for that. And then we're going to need to make these buttons look a little bit more like buttons. So we will do some rounded, and then we'll do a BG color of, let's do something pink 600, text white, padding X for padding Y. I'm going to do just one. Yeah, okay, that's a button for sure. And then what we can do is we can grab that same look and we can drop it down on our submit button as well. Okay, so now we have a submit button, and then we can put the these things beside each other. So that now we're just going to be doing a lot of flexing, if you will, just to kind of do some layout stuff. Okay, there we go. So we have those a little bit. Well, we need to space these out a little bit as well. And actually, we're going to need to do a little bit more with those, because the other thing that we don't have right now, and we can do this with the button. And so one of the things you can do with classes, they don't have to be strings in Svelte. They can be arrays, and they'll be passed to CLX, which will kind of handle merging and kind of setting values, the class value. So you can have some just straight strings in here. So we could say that these are going to be size 10, and then we'll say that they're rounded as well. And then we can also have something that says if the index equals the slot. So if the current, the whatever slot is active, if this one in the loop, this index in the loop is that, then we say that the background is going to be blue 500, but really faint. So now we're getting a little bit big for our britches here. So now we can see that this is select. And so one of the things we did is we had it so that we update the slot when we click on it. So that allows us to, and then it'll go and, but it lets us go back and edit one that we've done before. Okay, so that's handy, and it gives us some context there. And then what we can do is around for each of these sections, we'll do some borders, and we'll do rounded, large, and we'll probably do a bit of padding. And it's not responsive yet. We'll have to deal with that. We'll do that. That might be a separate thing. But actually, we want this one here to have a similar border and rounded large, and probably the same padding. Okay, and so everything's kind of running up against each other, so we're gonna at the top here do some flexing as well. But this is a flex column, and then we're gonna gap 4. Okay, and then within the header, we're gonna just do the same thing. Okay, it gives a little more spacing there. And we can do another one here where this is item center, and it's going to be a gap of 4. Okay, so, and now we just have the, well, we still have to format these guys because that isn't what we want. So let's go in into row and do some more flexing. And that's basically what gap 2. So we'll do this one will be gap 4, and then down here this one will be gap 2. Yeah, actually might make this a little bit bigger. Okay. Okay, and like we can obviously make it fancier than that, but we really don't need to. Yeah, I think that's probably fine for this one. And then we'll take a look at the emojis. And that is definitely not what I wanted to do. Okay. And then we'll do the same here where we're going to flex and then gap 2. But I think I'll make this one centered. And then each button, I'm going to kind of crank up the button a little bit. Size 12 and cursor pointer rounded, and then I'm going to do just a transparent gray 500 background. Yeah, okay. And again, we could, spend some time making this responsive, but that's good for now. And so I think that's all we need in here. So that looks good. So the only other piece of functionality then I was going to add that I kind of alluded to before was in here we can select these things. But once we've picked it, we can't unpick it. I mean, we can replace it. And so that functionality is fine. But if we wanted to get a little fancier with it, we could, this is the button here. we could do on context menu and have an event where we do e dot prevent the default. So we don't want the menu to pop up, and instead we want to set the slot to the index like we do down below, but then we also want to set the current slot to null. Okay, so now if we've chosen a few, we can go back and right click it and it'll clear it. And that'll just, I don't know, it's a little usability thing, I guess. And so let's now go and test that the random functionality works, because we know if we guess this, then we crack the code. And we can make, actually, you know what, before let's make this look a little bit nicer too while we're at it. Border, everything's, we're just gonna jump on the rounded border padding, 2, and in order to see it, I'm gonna just replace this with true, and then, but we'll do text center, and we'll do border emerald 500 because green is good. Yeah, that looks fine. And then what we'll do is we'll just copy that and paste it down for lost, except for we will change emerald to rose. And so instead of this being game.1, we'll do if true here, so we can see. Yep. And so we should actually also test that if you run out of tries, we get the that error message. Got to test all the things. So we should only get 10 tries. So this should be our last one. Out of tries. Secret was. Okay, so the last thing that I want to do with this button here now is I want to set if it's disabled. And we want it to be disabled if it's not ready. So if you haven't chosen all the things yet, then let's disable it. Or if the game has been won or the game has been lost, then I want it to be disabled. And let's make it visually interesting when it's disabled. Let's do, actually, I want cursor not allowed and disabled. Oops, I want opacity 50, and I want to actually set the cursor pointer normally. Okay, so we can't submit because we haven't chosen. So then it becomes enabled. And as soon as so it's all reactive, right? So all those values update depending on, you know, the state that they're in. We don't have to go back and kind of re-enable it automatically. It's updated, like this ready variable here is derived from the current. And so we don't have to, you know, to do anything to kind of disable this. It just kind of is reactive to that value automatically. Svelte takes care of that for us, essentially. And so let's go back to the game where we have the new game. And so instead of setting the this to a hard-coded value, we will generate code, and generate code is looking for the palette and allow duplicates. So this dot palette and this dot allow duplicates. Okay, and so now we should have, now if we guess this code, it's not right. So now we have something random, and allow duplicates is off. So in theory, we'll make sure that, or it should make sure that there's no duplicates. So we can see here. Well, we know that none of these, three of them are in the right, three of them are the right shape, but none of them are in the right spot. So let's do blueberry, apple, banana, grape. Okay. So we lost cherry. We got that. Let's see. So I want to say so either both cherry and blueberry are it, or neither are it. So okay, so blueberry is it. Cherry is probably it as well. And then two of these, I don't think kiwi is it. And then one of these three are in the right spot, and one's the right one. So we have blueberry and cherry, and then we'll say apple, banana. Okay, so those are the four. We just need to figure out where they go. So we know blueberry wasn't the one that was in the right spot. It was probably one of these two. So we just need to figure that out. So cherry wasn't in the right spot here. It's not in the right spot here. Blueberry isn't first, and one of these is apple. So let's try cherry first, apple, blueberry. No, because banana's not last. So we'll do well, then we'll do banana. No, we know one of these is correct. So we'll do apple last, and then banana here. Now we know grape's not there. Okay, so we know so grape can't be there. So grape, we'll put grape, or sorry, we'll put cherry at the beginning, and blueberry's not at the beginning. So we'll put blueberry here, and then we'll do banana, apple. No. Okay, so I think we should be able to get it now, which means that apple is here, and blueberry is one of these two. Cherry must be this one. So that means blueberry must be this one, which means banana must be first. And then we've cracked it. Right, so yeah, it works. It's fun, as the game was. If we try again with allowing duplicates, I'm not going to go through trying to actually spend the time to solve it, because it can take a bit. Okay, well, we know that there's 3 blueberries, so there's definitely duplicates. Right. Okay, and so that one's not blueberry because that one was wrong. So it's blueberry. Maybe we can solve it. Maybe it's blueberry, and one of these was right. So these ones are all wrong. So it's one of these two. So it's either apple, blueberry, or it's banana, blueberry. Yay. Okay. So yeah, duplicates obviously work. And yeah, I think that's it. There's obviously some changes or some augmentations you could add. You can make it so you customize the number of attempts. You can make it so you can customize the size of your code that you're here. Instead of 4, you could have it be 5 or 3 or 6, and you can make the palette different. You could have a chooser so people could choose which emojis they're using. There's all sorts of things you could do to make it a little bit more, enhanced. But I will put this up online so people can play with it. I will share the code, and all of that should be in the description below. Thanks for watching, and if you have any questions, leave them in the comments. And we'll see you hopefully not in another 4 years, hopefully a little bit sooner than that. Thanks again.